Transformation of identity. What makes the Titanic a ship, and when did people begin referring to it as one? Is a ship defined by its shape, parts, the hull, engine, and propeller, or by its ability to float and navigate the seas? If so, what defines the Titanic now that it lies motionless on the ocean's floor? Does it retain the essence of a ship, or has it become something else entirely, a relic or artifact that merely resembles its former identity? The Titanic, first called a ship because of its design and capacity for sea travel, reflects more than structural elements or motion. It embodies purpose. As it rests in the depths, it sheds the immediate identity of a ship, becoming an artifact, a witness to history and human endeavor. This shift suggests that an entity's essence relies on function and purpose. Without these, what once was a ship is transformed, illustrating how identity, shaped by context, evolves when function no longer applies. The famous thought experiment that best describes the transformation of identity is the ship of Theseus. It involves a ship once owned by the legendary voyager Theseus, which is preserved in a yard as a symbol of glory. Over time, the ship's damaged planks are replaced with new ones, eventually replacing every part of the ship. This raises the question, is the altered ship still the ship of Theseus? Additionally, what if someone else used the old parts removed from the original ship to build another ship? Which ship is the true ship of Theseus, the one that initially symbolized Theseus's ship, or the one built later using the original parts? If this question is asked independently to three individuals, X, Y, and Z, their answers will differ based on their prior knowledge and understanding. X, who does not know Theseus or his ship, might respond with, I don't know who Theseus is, or even, I don't care. Y, who only knows the ship that symbolized the ship of Theseus, would likely point to that ship as the true one. Z, who knows both ships, may face a dilemma. If Z considers the material construction of the ship rebuilt using the old parts would be the authentic ship of Theseus. However, if Z considers the form, function, and symbolism, the ship with the original parts replaced by new ones would be true. Clearly, the amount of information available to an individual affects their perspective on the matter. To complicate matters further, what if someone built a house with the original parts? Obviously, the house can never be considered a ship. In a different scenario, imagine that the original ship of Theseus is replaced overnight with an identical ship without the knowledge of society. Which one is the true ship of Theseus? It is important to note that its individual parts do not solely determine the ship's identity. The parts themselves do not embody the whole ship. They are used to construct a structure that represents the ship's new identity. Removing a few components does not undermine the ship's identity, but those removed parts no longer belong to the ship and can be used to build a new ship or a house. Separating a part does not impact the ship's identity, but it does affect the identity of the removed plank. The replaced planks now have a new identity as old planks of the ship of Theseus. If the ship were stripped of its old planks one by one, each plank would lose its identity as part of the ship and become just a plank. If those planks were then used to construct another structure, they would assume a new identity as part of a new ship. The ship's identity is determined by its final cause or purpose. As long as the ship fulfills its purpose, it retains its identity as the ship of Theseus. It is important to recognize that identity can change over time and space. The ship of Theseus lost its identity as planks when they were used to create a ship that represented the original ship's identity. The ship of Theseus is bound to undergo continuous degradation. To maintain the identity as the ship of Theseus, efforts should be made to resist degradation, maintain suitable conditions, reverse degradation, or even replace the ship itself. The observer's relevant knowledge, degree of consideration, and the resulting products will determine the ship's identity. Over the years, most of the matter comprising our bodies has been replaced by ingesting organic food and water. This assimilated matter is used to generate new cells, while older cells naturally decay and are eliminated through various bodily processes, such as bile excretion, urine, sweat, or exhalation of carbon dioxide. Despite this constant turnover of matter, the essential identity of the organism remains unchanged. Consider the scenario of a bacterial infection. Immune cells ingest and dismantle the bacteria, utilizing them for energy or growth. Although the net increase in matter from this interaction is minimal, it serves as a poignant illustration of identity dynamics. Initially, separate entities, the human body and the bacteria, coexist, each with its distinct identity. However, upon the bacteria's demise and subsequent assimilation into the human body, their identity shifts to become a part of the human body. Inevitably, matter associated with a particular bioidentity ultimately disintegrates into its elemental components, forfeiting its bioidentity. However, this liberated matter may find a new identity within other organisms, contributing to the formation of new bioidentities. These interrelationships between bioidentities manifest as parasitism, mutualism, or symbiosis, each reflecting distinct modes of interaction and dependency. I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as a plant and rose to an animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Rumi. An interesting example involves a metal alloy known as nitinol, which is a combination of nickel and titanium. Nitinol exhibits a fascinating phenomenon called shape memory. Let us consider a paperclip made of nitinol. If you were to reshape the paperclip so that it no longer resembles its original form, and then place it in hot water, the metal wire will fold onto itself and reshape back into a paperclip. This is a fantastic example of shape memory exhibited by a non-living material. This property can also be compared to the ability of living things to heal. Now, let us discuss the identity of the metal wire in terms of shape. Initially, the metal wire was a paperclip until it was undone and lost its paperclip identity. However, when placed back into hot water, it reshapes itself into a paperclip again. Whether there is a change in the identity of the paperclip over time, from before it was undone to after it is put back into hot water, depends on the specific time points of observation. The identity of the undone paperclip is quite confusing. It was not a paperclip at the moment it was undone, but it retains some memory of its paperclip identity within its molecular structure or twists. In the meantime, the metal wire is not a paperclip, but it can potentially reform into one under specific conditions. The Resurrection Island, Island of Abundance Test. An interesting series on National Geographic titled Resurrection Island shows the grimness and hope for wildlife. An island discovered in the 1770s apparently was filled with high concentrations of wildlife, mostly seals and penguins. Most of the wildlife was driven to near extinction due to excessive hunting and whaling. The island served as a station for the processing of the catch. Later, the industry was abandoned, and no more hunting was done on the island. Since then, the population of the seals, which had been dramatically reduced, has recovered. We shall do a similar thought experiment to determine the minimum number of entities required for the resurrection of a species. We shall first try to describe what makes the identity of a species. The identity includes all the species' structures, features, instincts, behaviors, stages, and life cycle phases. Then, the ultimate base or essential components are the genomes, including the genes, regulatory elements, and epigenomes. So what constitutes the genome of a species? Is the genome of any one individual organism sufficient to represent a species? The methodology is to place one propagating entity being tested in the most favorable conditions and niche for propagation. Assume that there is an island that is superfluously conducive to the growth and colonization of the species in the test. All nutrition is given, and no stress whatsoever. There is no variation nor selection, neither natural nor sexual selection, no hindrances or predators. It is an island of a perfect life. Eat all you want and reproduce all you can. However, the organisms put there should be able to obtain their own food, reproduce, and give rise to fertile and viable offspring. As a chain reaction, they should be able to colonize the island. The objective is to determine the minimum genetic requirement for the resurrection of a species. Let us start with the simplest to most complex entities. We will start with bacteria. Introduce a bacterium, say E. coli, on the resurrection island with all the amenities required for the growth and reproduction of E. coli. Will the bacteria colonize the whole island? Yes, it can because it reproduces by binary fission. Let us have a similar experiment for a virus, the acellular propagating entity such as a bacteriophage that lives off bacteria, with all the amenities for viral replication. Viruses can only replicate within living cells. Bacteriophages can replicate only in bacteria. Therefore, assume that the resurrection island of the bacteriophage is filled with the host bacteria. Will introducing one viral particle be sufficient to colonize the whole island? Yes, it can. Viruses use up all the molecular machinery of the host cell and make more copies of themselves, and then they will be able to colonize the resurrection island. The same would be true for a plasmid that has similar growth cycles. Each of these entities, the bacterium, bacteriophage, and plasmid, are perfect and potential representatives of their respective identities, species.